Let me speak to you man to man for a moment. No theory, no internet cliches, just the truth most men never hear. Attraction is not mysterious and it's not random. Yet a lot of good men keep losing women they genuinely like and can't explain why. They replay conversations, texts, and dates in their head trying to find the mistake. The confusion doesn't come from lack of effort. It comes from misunderstanding how attraction actually works in real life. Most men were raised to believe that doing more earns more interest. Be nicer, be available, be consistent. Show how serious you are early. On paper, that sounds logical. In practice, it quietly works against you. Not because women are cruel or confusing, but because attraction responds to emotional signals, not intentions. Here's the hard truth. Women don't fall for what you mean. They respond to how you show up, how you move, and how you make them feel in the moment. Many men focus on trying to prove themselves instead of allowing attraction to grow naturally. They talk too much, explain too much, and reveal too much too soon. Then they're shocked when the energy shifts. This video will break down the exact mistakes men make without realizing it and the adjustments that change everything. Not to turn you into someone fake, but to help you finally understand the rules you were never taught. 1. Trying to impress. Most men walk into attraction already chasing approval. They don't call it that, but it shows in how they speak, act, and adjust themselves around women. They lead with achievements, plans, and promises. They talk about how serious they are, how loyal they can be, and how different they are from other men. On the surface, it feels confident. Underneath, it reads as pressure. Attraction doesn't grow when a woman feels like she's being convinced. It grows when she feels curious and emotionally engaged. When you try to impress, you shift the interaction into a performance. You start monitoring her reactions, changing your tone, and saying what you think will land well. That self-monitoring kills presence. And presence is what women respond to first. Men who impress often over-explain. They answer questions with speeches instead of moments. They fill silence instead of letting tension breathe. Silence makes them nervous because silence feels like failure, but silence is often where attraction deepens. It gives space for emotions to rise. Another issue with impressing is speed. Men rush to show value before any emotional foundation exists. They invest early, emotionally and verbally, hoping that effort creates security. What it actually creates is imbalance. The woman senses that he wants something from her instead of sharing an experience with her. A grounded man doesn't try to win interest. He lets it develop. He speaks simply. He reacts honestly. He doesn't decorate his words to sound impressive. That calm self-trust signals emotional strength without saying a word. Stop asking, "How do I impress her?" Start asking, "Am I present, relaxed, and genuine right now?" 2. Over-explaining yourself. One of the fastest ways men lose attraction is by explaining themselves too much. Every time you justify a decision, defend a boundary, or clarify your intentions unprompted, you communicate uncertainty. You may believe you're being honest or considerate, but what comes across is self-doubt. Men over-explain because they fear being misunderstood or rejected. So they talk, they add context, they soften statements. They try to make sure she sees their good intentions. The problem is, attraction doesn't respond to intentions. It responds to emotional clarity. When you explain too much, you drain your words of weight. Look at how this shows up. You cancel plans and send a long paragraph explaining why. You set a boundary and immediately follow it with reassurance. You express interest and then explain why you feel that way. None of this is necessary. A simple statement delivered calmly carries far more strength than a detailed explanation loaded with emotion. Over-explaining also kills polarity. It puts you in a position of seeking understanding instead of standing in your decisions. Attraction leans toward men who are comfortable with being misunderstood sometimes. Not because they're careless, but because they trust themselves enough not to manage every reaction. When a man is grounded, his words are clean and final. He says what he means and lets it land. He doesn't rush to smooth over discomfort. He understands that mild tension isn't a threat. It's often part of attraction. Say less. Mean more. Let silence do some of the work for you. 3. Too much availability. Many men believe availability shows interest and reliability, so they answer instantly. They always adjust their schedule. They make themselves accessible at all times. They think consistency builds attraction. What it actually builds is predictability without depth. When you're always available, you remove space. And space is where attraction grows. Attraction needs room to breathe, to stretch, to develop naturally. Without space, interaction turns routine. Routine kills tension. This doesn't mean playing games or disappearing to create anxiety. It means having a full life that doesn't pause every time a woman enters the picture. When a man constantly prioritizes her above everything else early on, he communicates that his world is small and easily rearranged. That message lands emotionally, even if it's never spoken. Availability also shows up emotionally. Men reveal too much too soon. They share fears, plans, and attachment before trust has formed. They assume vulnerability equals closeness. In reality, timing matters. Emotional depth has to be earned through shared experiences, not rushed through conversation. A man who values his time doesn't explain why he's busy. He doesn't apologize for having priorities. He invites a woman into his life. He doesn't abandon his life to orbit hers. That balance feels stable and attractive. When you pull back from over-availability, something interesting happens. She leans in. Not because you withdrew affection, but because your presence feels intentional, not guaranteed. Respect your time. Guard your energy. Attraction responds to men who do both naturally. 4. Chasing emotional clarity. A lot of men try to lock things down emotionally too early. They want clarity. They want to know where they stand. They ask direct questions about feelings, intentions, and direction before attraction has had time to stabilize. They think clarity creates security. What it actually creates is pressure. Attraction thrives in movement, not certainty. When a man pushes for emotional definitions early, he forces a woman to analyze feelings that are still forming. That analysis often shuts attraction down. Not because she isn't interested, but because she's being asked to label something that hasn't matured yet. This usually comes from anxiety. The man wants reassurance so he can relax. He wants confirmation so he can invest safely, but attraction doesn't reward emotional urgency. It responds to calm confidence and emotional patience. You see this mistake in phrases like wanting to know where this is going after only a short time, or trying to define exclusivity before shared experiences exist. Those conversations aren't wrong, they're just premature. Timing matters more than words. A grounded man allows things to unfold. He observes behavior instead of interrogating feelings. He notices effort, consistency, and engagement without demanding verbal confirmation. He trusts momentum instead of forcing certainty. When emotional clarity is right, it arrives naturally. When it's forced, it collapses attraction. Stay present. Enjoy the interaction. Let connection build before asking it to carry weight it hasn't earned. 5. Losing your center. One of the most damaging mistakes men make is abandoning themselves once attraction starts. Their opinions soften. Their routines shift, their boundaries blur. They become more agreeable, more cautious, more focused on not messing things up. They think flexibility keeps attraction alive. What it actually does is erase the man she was drawn to. Attraction begins with a man who is grounded in who he is, his rhythm, his values, his standards. When he starts adjusting himself to fit what he thinks she wants, that grounding disappears. She may not consciously notice it, but she feels the shift. The energy changes. Respect fades before interest does. Losing your center shows up in small ways. Laughing at things you don't find funny, agreeing to plans you don't enjoy, holding back honest reactions to avoid conflict. Each small compromise chips away at your presence. Over time, you no longer feel solid, and she no longer feels drawn in. A man who keeps his center isn't rigid or cold. He's responsive without being reactive. He listens without abandoning his perspective. He doesn't argue to dominate, but he also doesn't shrink to maintain peace. Women feel safe with men who remain steady under emotional pressure. That steadiness signals maturity and strength. It shows you can handle disagreement, tension, and uncertainty without losing yourself. Stay rooted, speak honestly, move at your own pace. Attraction grows when a man remains himself, not when he becomes convenient. 6. Leading with logic. Many men try to navigate attraction with logic alone. They analyze texts, decode behavior, and search for the right thing to say. They approach connection like a problem to solve instead of an experience to feel. The issue isn't intelligence, it's disconnection from emotion. Attraction doesn't move through explanations. It moves through tone, timing, presence, and emotional flow. When a man leads with logic, he often misses what's actually happening in the moment. He responds to words instead of energy. He focuses on meaning instead of feeling. You see this when men debate emotions instead of acknowledging them, when they try to reason someone into understanding, when they explain why something makes sense instead of allowing it to be felt. That approach may be useful in work or conflict resolution, but in attraction, it creates distance. Women respond to how interactions feel, not how well they're explained. A man who stays emotionally attuned reads the room. He adjusts his pace. He knows when to speak and when to pause. He doesn't rush to fix discomfort. He lets emotions pass naturally. Leading with logic also creates stiffness. Conversations become interviews. Humor disappears. Playfulness fades. Attraction needs lightness. It needs unpredictability. It needs moments that aren't perfectly controlled. This doesn't mean abandoning thought or boundaries. It means letting emotion guide interaction while logic supports it quietly in the background. The most attractive men are emotionally aware, not emotionally overwhelmed or emotionally detached. Drop the constant analysis. Be where you are. Feel the interaction as it unfolds. When you're present instead of calculating, attraction has room to grow. 7. Avoiding tension. Most men try to keep things smooth at all costs. They avoid disagreement, emotional spikes, and uncomfortable moments. They think harmony keeps attraction alive. In reality, constant smoothness flattens emotion. Attraction needs contrast. It needs moments of intensity, challenge, and unpredictability. When a man avoids tension, he avoids depth. He becomes safe but forgettable. Not because he lacks value, but because nothing in the interaction creates emotional movement. Avoiding tension often looks polite on the surface. You don't push back, you don't tease, you don't express strong reactions, you keep everything agreeable. But attraction grows when there's emotional engagement, not emotional neutrality. Healthy tension doesn't mean conflict or disrespect. It means expressing differences honestly. It means holding eye contact in silence. It means playful challenge. It means not rushing to smooth over every awkward moment. These moments create energy. They give the interaction texture. A man who can sit calmly in tension signals confidence. He doesn't panic when emotions rise. He doesn't rush to fix or explain. He allows the moment to breathe. That calm presence makes tension feel safe instead of threatening. Women don't lose interest because a man creates tension. They lose interest when everything feels emotionally flat. Without peaks and valleys, attraction fades quietly. Lean into honest reactions. Allow discomfort to pass without fear. Depth comes from staying present when things aren't perfectly smooth. Attraction isn't something you force, prove, or negotiate. It responds to how you carry yourself, how you manage your energy, and how comfortable you are being yourself under pressure. Most men don't lose attraction because they're lacking effort or intention. They lose it because they misunderstand what creates emotional pull. When you stop trying to impress, stop explaining yourself, and stop chasing certainty, something shifts. You become calmer, more grounded, more present. You move through connection instead of trying to control it. The goal isn't to change who you are. It's to remove the habits that dilute your presence. When you respect your time, hold your center, allow tension, and stay emotionally aware, attraction develops naturally. Master these fundamentals, and dating stops feeling confusing. You won't need tricks or scripts. You'll understand what's happening in real time, and you'll move with confidence instead of fear.